Hi there, Derek here. In this video, I want to go over 10 very common mistakes and maybe explain them a bit, and also point out that if you're a language learner and you make these mistakes, you're in good company because native speakers get these wrong all the time. And I think it's not necessary. And once you know about it, you won't do it again. So let's start with one of my least favorite ones. And someone started this about 10 years ago in the States, and for some reason, it's just stuck, and it shouldn't, and we can get rid of it. And it's when people say, I could care less. And it's sort of illogical. I mean, I know logic and English don't often play well together, but this is a case where it actually does. And if you, I don't know, put caring on an arbitrary scale from 0 to 100, where 100 is you care about this with a passionate flame that you don't look at because it will burn your eyeballs out, and 0 is complete indifference, and somewhere in the middle is a subjective range. So if you only care about something up to a level of, say, 10, there's still 10 points you can go down. But if you're at the level 0, then there's nowhere further to go. And really what they're trying to say is they're on level 0. So what they should be, and the correct version of this, and please get it in your head, I couldn't care less. My caring is at 0. There is no lower to go. Because if I could care less, I must care at least a bit. And so it makes no sense. It's completely senseless. Please stop it. Yeah. And the next one is, say, to pique someone's interest. And here, pique is not to be peaks of mountains. That's spelled differently. We're talking about pique as in P-I-Q-U-E, meaning to sort of arouse someone's interest. So again, it sounds the same, but when you come to writing it down, just make sure you put the right spelling. Another one that sounds the same, let's call them homophones, shall we, is to wait for something with bated breath. And baited is often falsely spelled, as in B-A-I-T-E. There's no I in bated breath. It actually comes from as a shortened form of the old word abated, meaning sort of to hold something. So if you're waiting with bated breath, you're like, you don't breathe because, you're waiting for this, whatever you're waiting for. It's nothing to do with not catching fish. It's not that type of baited. This next one is something very, very common, especially among native speakers. And what you'll find is, say, the verbs could, would, and should. You can say could have, would have, and should have get contracted to would apostrophe VE, so would have, could have, and should have. And it's not could of, would of, and should of. It's definitely the could have is could have, and it's not could of. And you hear a lot of native speakers even doing this, so just to be aware of it. Another one often gets confused. Instead of saying for all intents and purposes, people say for all intensive purposes. And it sounds very similar, but it means something completely different. And again, if you're writing it down, please make sure you write it properly, to all intents and purposes, not intensive purposes. The next one is a bit of a gardening simile, and it's to nip it in the bud. And a bud here is like a small forming flower before it really opens up and blooms. And if you don't want the flower, you just nip it out before it. And what we're saying here is if you nip something in the bud, you sort it out, whatever it is, a problem, when it's a small problem. You don't wait for it to get a big problem and then try and solve it. You nip it in the bud. What a lot of people incorrectly say is nip it in the butt, i.e. the bum. And if you do this, you might end up getting an invite for a meeting in HR. So nip it in the bud. It's better. The next one is instead of scapegoat, which is someone who unfairly takes the blame for something, they say the scapegoat. In other words, a goat that got out and was running around wild. It's not to do with the scaped goats. It's not 2 words. It's 1 word, scapegoat. The next one is a moot point. A moot is a rather old-fashioned word. If something's a moot point, it doesn't really matter now. So something's happened that makes the whole question meaningless. It's a moot point. It's not a mute point. It's not silent. And a lot of people will say mute and write M-U-T-E, and it's M-O-O-T, a moot point. And speaking of points, they'll often say, yeah, but this is my case and point, and they mean case in point. Again, sounds similar when you say it quickly. If you're writing it down, it just looks horribly wrong when you say case and point. And the last one is also, people do say, it's actually more often that native speakers say this incorrectly than learners. And even the best people will make this mistake. And what they do, instead of saying there for the possessive form, they will say they. And instead of saying there for short for they are, they'll say they. And I don't understand it. There's no reason to do this. It doesn't save you time. By saying they instead of there, you're not going to get like double the amount done in a day because of all the time you've saved not saying there properly. I can't find the clip, but I saw a clip of, say, Neil deGrasse Tyson even, someone who is hugely respected, intelligent, great communicator, great motivator, nothing but positive things. Occasionally he will, shall we say, sacrifice grammar and communication on the altar of physics and science, which is a bad thing to do. Because communication is one of these topics that is valuable in every single branch of science and life and everything. You could be an intelligent person, you could invent a cure for cancer, you could solve world hunger, but if you can't communicate it to anybody, what's the point? And I can't find the clip, but I've seen him saying, and they touching they hair. I think, seriously? I know why he's doing it. He's trying to be all hip and street and appear to the youth, but it's not a good idea. And please don't. It's not no. Just don't do it. It just sounds stupid. And I know it comes from some part of the US, and it just kind of spread out like a creeping mold over the rest of the world, and it's not a good idea. So please stop saying that. If the two on the list here that are really important to me is this one about they touching they hair, and I could care less. The rest are minor points, but these two, please stop doing it. It is ridiculous and totally annoying. Right, that was my 10 mistaken expressions and words. Do you have one that I missed that's your favorite? If so, put it in the comments and we'll talk about it. So see you next time. Bye for now.